Happy Monday, and welcome to Audacity Presents. I hope that you had a good weekend because the week is just starting, but I also pray that you have a good week as well. So, for the past 5 weeks, we have been studying angels. In the past 2 weeks, we've kind of taken a deep dive into cherubs or cherubims. And last week, we talked about Lucifer, who was an angel, who was a cherub. And we ended the show with the question, is there sin in heaven? Because last week we talked about Lucifer and his great fall because of sin. And it got me to thinking, is there sin in heaven? Now we know that Lucifer became full of pride and he wanted everyone to worship him. He wanted to be God, he wanted to be the one on the throne. But we know that God hates pride. If we look in Proverbs 8:13, it says, "The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride, arrogance, the evil way, and the perverted mouth I hate." God hates pride, but yet Lucifer became prideful. Now, I'm going to tell you, I talked to a lot of people on this because the research that I was doing it was like, was there sin in heaven or not? Which one is it? And so I'm gonna land with what my pastor said when he said there wasn't sin in heaven. There was sin in Lucifer. That got me to thinking. There was sin in Lucifer. Well, where did this sin come from? They're in heaven. Where did this come from? And so I started digging a little deeper, and I kept running across the fact that when God created these angels, he gave them free will. And I'm still struggling with that. I'm still struggling. I'm still researching that. Angels have free will? Hmm. I read somewhere that it said God doesn't, he wants people to worship him willingly. And so God was not forcing, or he was not going to force Lucifer to worship him. Lucifer exercised his choice to rebel against God and tried to usurp his rule. Lucifer had free will. So this could explain why God had to act immediately when he saw that Lucifer had become full of pride, because he didn't want sin or a sinful being in heaven. So, like I said, it's not that there was sin or is sin in heaven, but that there was sin in Lucifer and the angels that fell with them because they had free will. I'm going to rest on that, but rest assured, I'm still researching that. I'm still trying to get to the bottom of that. And we know that there are some things that are just not there in scripture. And so I'm going to pray for myself that if I can't find a definite scripture to support that, I'm going to rest that God doesn't want us to know and leave it at that. So today I want to talk about seraphims. We know most times when we see cherubims, we see seraphims as well. Both are angels, but they serve different purposes. Now, seraphim, which means burning one, is another type of angel. They attend to God's throne and offer praise to him. Like cherubim, seraphim has wings also. They have 6 wings according to Isaiah, 2 to fly, 2 to cover their feet, and 2 to cover their face. Now, I was wondering as I'm reading this, why? Why do these wings serve this purpose? And though it does not specifically tell us, some of the research that I found is that it is possible they covered their face with 2 wings because they were in the presence of God. I thought about, you guys remember I believe it's in Exodus, when Moses asked God to show him his glory. But Moses could not look upon God, and so he had to hide his face off in this crevice of a mountain so that God could pass by him. And I think there's another scripture that says no one has seen the face of God and lived. I think that's a scripture somewhere. I'm gonna have to research that. I've definitely heard that. And so it's possible that these seraphim who are in the presence of God, tending to his throne, cover their face because they do not want to experience, or because they're in the presence of God. Now, the covering of their feet. Hmm. We said there's two wings to fly, two wings to cover their face, two wings to cover their feet. Could not find anything specifically on why they covered their feet. But I was reading this article that said in Asian culture, the feet are considered symbolically unclean, and the soles of the feet should not be exposed. Is it possible that the seraphim covered their feet because, again, of being in the presence of God, and their feet were considered unclean? Which also made me think, well, why did God create them with feet? Look, sometimes my brain just goes off in the left field. I'm like, if they're going to cover their feet, and if their feet are considered unclean, why did God create them with feet? I don't know. I don't know. And some people that would come to an I don't know conclusion would be like, that's the first thing I'm going to ask God when I get to heaven. No, we are not. I'm going to be so glad to be in the presence of the Lord, that to walk up to him, which I probably would not, because we cannot put our sight on him, and things are different when we are in our spiritual souls in heaven. Not going to be asking him, why did you make the seraphim with feet? Just not a question that I want to know that bad, but that did come to mind. Now, the Bible does not record the number of seraphim in heaven. But as we have been talking about angels, we know that there is a number too great to count, regarding the existence of angels and the number of angels that there are. Now, we first see seraphims mentioned um, in the book of Isaiah. Now, we know that Isaiah was this great prophet to the southern kingdom of Judah. And when King Uzziah died, the kingdom started to just go downhill spiritually. They were headed toward disaster. But before Isaiah um, could prophesy to Judah, God first needed to reveal to Isaiah the depth of his own uncleanness. Isn't that interesting? And I often experience that when I am asked to speak at different events. Man, I have to go through this cleansing. I don't want to call it a ritual, but I have to spend days with the Lord, because I want to make sure that my heart is right before I stand and speak to God's people. And so I spend that time in meditation. I ask God to reveal to me people that I may have been unkind to. I've gone back and apologized, things that I need to get, um, lack of a better word, get rid of in my life. That is things and people, before I go and speak, because I want to make sure that I have searched my own heart for uncleanliness before I get up and talk to the people of God. So God was showing Isaiah the depth of his own uncleanness before Isaiah could prophesy to King of Judah. And so in Isaiah is where we see the first mention of seraphim. And I could not find any other places where seraphims were mentioned. I do want to go into a deep dive into Revelation to see if they appear back on the scene in Revelation, and I feel that they do. But in my study in preparation for today, Isaiah was my focus. So we have in the book of Isaiah, God is giving Isaiah this vision to reveal his uncleanness, and Isaiah mentions these seraphims that are flying around the throne, singing continually praises of God's glory and majesty. These seraphim are saying, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of armies. And they are singing this continuously. And I feel like sometimes when we see that continuously or pray without ceasing, that we don't fully grasp or understand what that means. Continually, non-stop, without ceasing, over and over and over. And it reminds me of when my kids were little. They would be behind mama, 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 I mean, just over and over and over again. I couldn't imagine day in and day out, mama, 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 mama. Oh my gosh. But think about this, of the seraphim flying around the throne, singing continual praises of his glory and majesty. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of armies. And Isaiah says the sound from the seraphim shook with power of their voice. And when Isaiah heard this, he was overcome. When I read this, I thought about our women's Bible study did this study on the pastor. I can't think of his name right now, but I think it was the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir. I did a research on the pastor that started that church. But there are songs that this choir sings, and they sing it with such power and such beauty that to the hearer, to the listener, you can begin to feel unworthy. And this is how Isaiah was feeling when he heard the seraphim singing, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of armies. And you're hearing this continuously, and it begins to seep deep into your soul that Isaiah is like, who am I? I am so unworthy to even be having this vision of what God is revealing to me. And there are times I'm sure that you have experienced, and that I have definitely experienced, in listening to praise and worship and listening to the words of a song, that I begin to feel so unworthy to even join in and have those words cross my lips, because I feel so unworthy. And so Isaiah is standing there with a picture of this vision and feeling so unworthy. And Isaiah, in his vision, feeling unworthy of what he was witnessing, he responded, I am a man of unclean lips. And when he said that, from Isaiah's statement, when he said that, a seraphim flew over to him with a glowing coal that he had taken from the altar with a pair of tongues. And the seraphim touched Isaiah's lips and said, now that this has touched your lips, your iniquity is removed and your sin is atoned. Isaiah was cleansed by the touching of this coal that the seraphim placed on his lips. And it's interesting, I was reading in another commentary where it said, our lips are one of the most sensitive places. And to imagine a hot coal touching our lips and an angel saying, you are now cleansed, your iniquity is removed, and your sin is atoned. A seraphim, an angel, did this. The angels who tend to the throne of God, who say, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of armies continually. What an amazing purpose the seraphim have in heaven around the throne of God. And so when we look at the role of the seraphim, what do they show us in our life today as Christians? You see, while serving God through worship, the seraphim remind us that God is holy, holy, holy. Their whole job, their whole purpose, their whole being is to honor God with that proclamation of holy, holy, holy. And to make his holiness known to everyone who dares to approach the throne of God. When we call on the name of God, we are calling on someone who is holy, holy, holy. The seraphim show us the importance of God and the honor and reverence that we should give to him on a continual basis. I know us as humans, we are busy about our day. We take our mornings or our evenings to do our devotion, and then we go on about our business. But the seraphim tell us continually, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of armies. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of armies. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of armies. And so as you go about your week, remember the angels, the seraphim who tend to the throne of God, saying, holy, 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 regardless of what's going on in your life, holy, 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 regardless of what's going on your job, holy, 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 regardless of what's going on in our families with our children and our spouses, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of armies. And there is nothing more important than knowing this and saying this and feeling it deep in our soul. Isaiah, when he heard them singing, he heard them singing with all of this power. And he thought, I am so not worthy. Holy, holy, holy. So this is my Mary moment for the week. And as I've shared every week, my word of the year is hope. And so my Mary moments are focusing on hope. And hope is holding onto promises every day. Holding onto promises every day. That's the acronym for hope. And my replay is, and I think we've had this on before, More Than Able from Maverick City. It says, when did I start to forget all of the great things you did? When did I throw away faith for the impossible? How did I start to believe you weren't sufficient for me? Why do I take myself out of seeing miracles? You are more than able. You are more than able. Who am I to deny what the Lord can do? Who am I to deny what the Lord can do? So I'm going to leave you this week with, maybe you want to go digging around in Revelation to see if you can find another reference to seraphim. That's what I'm going to do this week. And next week, we'll pick back up. I'll tell you if I found anything, any other mentions of seraphim in scripture, and we will continue our study on angels over the next few weeks. Y'all have a good week.